So the Sony PS5 console has been revealed. It's definitely an exciting time for game enthusiasts out there that support the Sony franchise. So in this video today, I'm going to be talking about the specs of the PS5, but I'm also going to be deciding on whether I want to invest in Sony as a company. So from the information that we do know, the PS5 is going to be released sometime in Q4 of 2020, so that ranges between October to December of 2020. Now with most of these game console releases, they always enjoy having a release date throughout the Christmas period, and that is just to have maximum sales as possible. Now a few months ago, there were a lot of questions given that E3 was cancelled due to the coronavirus. But back in March of 2020, Sony confirmed that there'll be no impact on the release date for the PS5. Now, in terms of costing, there's been no official announcement on how much this console will cost. There's been speculation that the price will be higher to the initial price set for the PS4. So no official confirmation on the price just yet. Now, in terms of the specs, we can see that AMD is still being used for the CPU. Now they're using their third generation and it's 7nm. So from a business perspective, it's always interesting to see that Sony is teaming up yet again with AMD. So I have all the confirmed PS5 specs listed below. Now what's interesting is that there's two different models of the PS5. There is a PS5 Digital Edition, which does not include the optical drive. There's also the regular console, which includes the optical drive. Now for me, the future of gaming is to not have an optical drive. I suspect this is just to keep third-party retailers happy to sell the discs for the PS5. Part of me would have liked to have seen the optical drive moved, but the option is there for those that enjoy having physical discs. Now in addition, there is backward compatibility for PS4 based games. Now Sony has been a little bit sketchy on some of the titles on the PS4 as to whether they will play as they should on the PS5, but it sounds like they are working behind the scenes to make that transition fully compatible. Now it should be mentioned that the PS5 is using SSD, so a solid state drive, and what's really impressive here is that there's going to be no load screens. The time it takes to boot a game is within a second. And in terms of the SSD drive, it's 825 gigabits, which is customizable also. So to achieve having no load screens, the PS5 has what's referred to as configurable installation, which simply means that games will be installed in segments. And to free up memory as well, you can remove a section of the game. So if you ever hit that limit on the SSD drive, you are free to save on space there. And also the support for 8K gaming is happening as well. So there's a ton of specs, but it's definitely an exciting time for individuals that follow the Sony franchise. Now bringing everything back to my actual channel and what I focus on. As we know, I focus on dividend-based investing. I invest in a range of companies that I believe will continue in the long run and fundamentally continue to pay out their dividends to grow my own personal portfolio. So a quick summary on my portfolio, I've only invested a little bit more into Tesco. For the most part, markets have been higher than I would like to buy in. So I have a portfolio value of slightly over £8,600, and so far I've just been investing £100 or so for the given month. So I have Sony on the screen, and one question you may have is, if you are really excited in a given product or a service of a company, should you then go out and invest in the underlying stock? These days it's so easy to open up a brokerage firm and invest immediately, and so I want to look into Sony a little bit more to decide whether or not I would personally like to invest in the company. Now on the Trading 212 platform, while it's possible to invest in Sony and to analyze the performance, given that Sony was available from a few months back, we can't look at the previous history. Sony is a multinational conglomerate, and so while they have headquarters in Japan, they also have office spaces all over, and they are listed on the New York Stock Exchange as well. And this is the price that you are seeing on the screen within Trading 212. And for the majority of Europe-based platforms. So switching to Yahoo Finance, we can see the current price at the time of this recording was just under $70. So for context, we have a 52-week price range from $50 to slightly under $74. So we're at the higher end of the spectrum, and it's not too surprising when we have announcements such as a new console release, which happens every 6 or so years. Then one could initially say that we are somewhat late to buying our shares into the company. Now, for those who like buying dividend-based companies, we can see that there's a dividend yield of 0.67%. So this is one of the lowest that I've seen, and so there's not much of a motivation there to buy the stock, but they do pay out dividends, and that is something to consider anyway. Now, looking a little bit more into the stats, I always like to look at the payout ratio, and this is really low. I mean, Sony has a lot of room to increase their dividend price given that it's under 10%, so very healthy for the company. Their payout ratio is extremely low. Now, looking at the financials, we can see we have this green graph here, which is the revenue. It's in the trillions of dollars, very healthy indeed. And on the blue line here, we have their earnings, and that's in billions of dollars. So 2017 to 2019, the earnings is increasing, and for 2020, there's a little bit of a drop. Now, that's not too shocking. Most companies that have been getting past the coronavirus, there's always going to be a hit in the earnings, but these numbers are extremely healthy. And so looking at the earnings as well, we've had quarter by quarter, whole of 2019, really impressive indeed. The estimates that were forecasted, well, they outshone that forecast for the first 3 quarters of 2019. Now, quarter 1 of 2020, they slightly missed by 2 pence on their estimated earnings per share. Now, I suspect for the likes of quarter 4 of 2020, when the PS5 is released, we will see really impressive numbers for quarter 1 of 2021, when all that data is released. Now, given the contextual background, as I said, with the pandemic, quarter 1, quarter 2 of 2020, I'm not too concerned. The estimates and the actual values are aligning really well. So all in all, Sony is a very healthy company. I actually would like to see them pay out a little bit more to their shareholders. So for me personally, in terms of the market price of the stock, it's on the higher side. It definitely has more room to go, and we could see maybe at the end of this year this stock hitting around the $80 mark. So Sony will be added to my watch list. I don't plan on buying the stock right now. I do feel as though there were much better buying opportunities back in mid to early May, but that shouldn't stop a long-term investor from wanting to invest in such a company. The financials that we've gone over look very healthy, and although it's not going to grow your personal dividend portfolio, it's still a nice stock to add. Now, sometimes with companies where you really enjoy the product or the service that they sell, it doesn't always equate to wanting to buy the underlying stock. But something to think about is for those that are new to investing and they plan on rushing out and buying the latest and greatest console, then have a think about whether you would want to invest in that business as well. It's totally fine to do both. For instance, owning the PS5 and investing in Sony itself. We should all put our investor caps on and have a think about trying to be part owners in some of these companies if we really like the product and services that they have to offer. So what are your thoughts on the PS5? Will you be buying the new console when it's released? And more importantly, will you be investing in the likes of Sony? So leave a comment in the comment section below. And with that said, I'll catch you in the next one.